Alrighty, in this video we will talk about how to create 3 different types of maps in Datawrapper: a Choropleth map, a symbol map, and a locator map. These activities are drawn from hands-on data visualization, interactive storytelling from Spreadsheets to Code in Chapter 7, Map Your Data. And there are different tutorials here that we will follow. The locator map tutorial is still being updated, so we'll kind of interpret it in our own way. But the first one that we'll try is the Choropleth map. All right? Choropleth maps use a scale of color to show different values within polygons or regions. So we're going to go ahead and recreate the Choropleth map that they have here. The first thing you'll need to do is open the spreadsheet in Google Sheets. You can go ahead and click on that link that says Home Value Index and open it in a new tab. You'll see something similar to this, right? So there's a little bit of cleanup that they did. They're talking about they only left the values for 2019 and 2020. After you read about the data, you'll need to go to File and make a copy to your own account. I'll let that run in the background. Okay, here's our copy of that spreadsheet. So then we'll go back to Datawrapper and we will select the Choropleth map option. After selecting the Choropleth map option, we need to upload our data, basically. We already know that we want the states of the US to be our regions, so we can go ahead and search for that specifically in the Search for Region box and select USA states. Then we can click on the blue button to proceed. Now we're ready to add our data. We can copy and paste it, upload it. There's lots of different ways, but what we're going to do today is connect a Google Sheet, just like they talk about in the instructions here. Okay, so what you would do is you would click on Connect Google Sheet, and then here you have to make sure that the link to the Google Sheet is correct. So you need to make sure that you click on the Share button on your Google Sheet. And then instead of making it restricted, make sure that anyone with the link can edit, so it's the most shared that it can be. Then click on Copy Link, go back to Datawrapper, paste it here, and connect. Once we do that, all of our data shows up on the right-hand side over here, and we are ready to once again click on the blue button to proceed. Okay, we need to click proceed maybe a few more times. Or wait, we want to make sure that everything here is matched, so we can choose if we want 2019, 2020, or the percentage change between 2019 and 2020, right? It looks like in their example, they're using the 2020 numbers, the most recent. So let's change this to 2020, and then click on proceed, and then click on proceed again. Now we're at the visualize step. This is where you can add your title, your annotations, and all kinds of stuff. You can also add a color palette. We can do this kind of greeny blue one like they have here in their example. And we can use their same title, typical home values in the United States. We can also look at their subtitle and include that in the annotate section here. Let me go ahead and change this annotation over here. Put it in the description box, right? Sometimes it doesn't immediately update, so you can refresh the page if you see that something isn't quite updating. You'll want to go ahead also in the annotate section, put your name in the byline section, right? And you want to add a description here. Choropleth map showing home values in the United States in 2020. Okay, another thing that you'll notice in their example is that their scale is different than our scale, right? You can read more about different color scales in the section that's called Designing Choropleth Colors and Intervals, right? So they also show you what it would look like if you switch to different types. Okay. You can also look at what the map would look like if you tried to visualize percent change. instead of just overall prices. All right, for now, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a continuous linear scale. You can also choose natural scale if you want. Either one of those is fine with me. For the range, we're going to go ahead and leave the range where it's at, but we're going to want to change what the formatting of these numbers are, right? We still want the minimum to be the same as and the maximum to be the same, but we want it just like they have it here to be with a $sign, and we want to have that letter K so that it looks a little bit nicer and cleaner, right? So in the formatting options, there's lots of options. One of them has that K next to it, right? If we change it, it applies the K, but it doesn't have the $sign, right? Even in the advanced options. So we can add a custom label to manually type in what we know the values are. So we can say the minimum is 108K, and the maximum, what was the maximum again? The maximum is, just going to go back to the reference here, 648K. So this allows us to type exactly what we want. All right. Next, I'm switching back and forth between the instructions and the example here. Let's go back to where we were. Next, we're going to want to create tooltips. Tooltips will show up when we hover over the states, right? We can do that in the annotate section. Down here where it says tooltips, we're going to want to click on the button that says customize tooltips. And then we want our window to match what they have here. The name of the state is going to stay the same, but the actual body of the tooltip is going to have a $sign in front of it, right? And we're also going to add the word home value after it. Okay, you can see how that updates on our map. And finally, we're going to use their formatting to make it a rounded number with a comma in between. So you can type inside the curly brackets format in all caps, and then we'll want to put a 00, just like they have it here inside of quotes. 0, 0. Okay, and now we've got the formatting that we would like. We could also add more information here if we wanted to. Like if we wanted this to say home value in 2020, we could add the same information for 2019. Instead of August 2020 home value, we could change it to August 2019 home value. And that would allow us to show both of those numbers. All right, so there's lots of information here that you can add. Finally, the last step is to publish your map. To publish your map, you'll want to go to Layout, make sure that everything looks good over here. Also, I really recommend that you turn on this option that says Embed Link. That's going to be really useful for sharing your map and embedding it in other places. Then you'll want to click on Proceed and Publish Now. Once you publish it, you'll have a link that you can copy and paste in order to embed this anywhere, like in Medium, or share it, or turn it in for homework. Right, so that's the first map. We're going to go ahead and go back to the textbook and click on Symbol Point Map this time. This is a separate tutorial, and we're going to make a map just like this one. So this is already published and saved to our account. We're going to click on Create New Map again. This time we'll click on Symbol Map. We'll need to get our data from the textbook. It's over here, U.S. cities population change 2010 to 2019. I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and as usual, make a copy to my account. Save it to my personal drive. They have some more information about this data and about cleaning up messy data. Okay. So for this one, they're recommending that you actually save the data as CSV and then upload it to Datawrapper. So let's go ahead and practice that. I'm going to click on File, Download, and then CSV. This saves that file to my computer. Then here in the symbol map, we'll want to zoom in on the United States. Once again, we'll use the states as our kind of region. We'll proceed. And now, since we downloaded the data, we can import by adding a CSV table here. Okay, it asks us, do we have addresses or do we have latitudes and longitudes? In our case, we have city-states, right? So this is kind of like addresses. We're going to click on that and then click to upload a CSV file. I'll find the CSV that I just downloaded, I'll open it up, and it will import into my box here. These place names are going to be the closest thing to an address that we have, so we're going to go ahead and click on that and then click on Next. It says congratulations, it has been successful. We can go forward, and now we see all of our dots on the map. We can click on Proceed, and here's where the fun part is. We get to style this map. I'm going to go ahead and style the map to look like theirs, right? U.S. city population change from 2010 to 2019 is going to be our title. Personally, I prefer a title that's more like a headline, but this is fine to practice. And don't forget your byline, of course. Oh, and the data source as well. We're going to want to include that. They've included it here, the U.S. Census, so we can actually just copy the same data source that they have, put it in the link, and then cite the U.S. Census here. All right, that looks pretty good. If we go back to the Refine tab, we can start to size things in different bubble sizes, right? So if you look here in their instructions, you can see that we can give it a size by property. That's this one right here. And we can choose the population estimate in 2019 as the size of our bubble. We can also increase the maximum bubble size a little bit so that there's more room here for it to show variation, right? And of course we want a circle, that's the default, but you could choose other ones if you want for other maps. Right? Looks like their symbol colors are being set to reflect the percentage change, right? In this first iteration, percentage change from before. So let's go ahead and select percent change as our color column. All right. At first, it looks green and blue, just like theirs, totally fine. But then they say, hey, let's add our own colors. And there's lots of ways to add colors. The easiest way is to use color hex codes like this. So I'm going to go ahead and copy their colors. Let's use the same ones. And then go back to Datawrapper, click on the little wrench next to the colors. And then here where it says import colors, you just paste that color palette. Looks pretty good, but we need it to be separated by steps instead of by a continuous scale. So let's go ahead and change this to steps, and we're going to go ahead and use custom values here. The first one is going to be representing no change from 0 to 0. Then we're going to do small changes from 0 to 5, from 5 to 10. Oops, I closed it by accident. If you close it by accident, by the way, it'll save your changes, so don't worry. From 5 to 10, from 10 to 20, and 20 or larger. Okay, now it's not exactly clear what this legend represents the way that it's set up now, so it's actually going to be much more useful if we customize the legend. This is going to allow us to explain to our reader what exactly those categories of colors represent. And you can go ahead and use the exact same labels that they have in their example. Okay, so we're going to use custom labels here. Group A is going to be decreased change. Group B is going to be increased less than 5%. Group C is from 5 to 10%. Group D is going to be 10 to 20%, and so on. Last one is over 20% increase. All right, and so now the reader of your story will know what happened. Okay, everything else looks pretty good, so you can click on proceed. We have some mouse overs here to tell us what the cities are. You could also customize the tooltip so that as well as saying what the city is, it also tells you what the percent change was. And you can add the percentage change in population to that. Pretty good, right? Once you're done with that, you can proceed to the last step. Don't forget to turn on the embed link option. Proceed once again, publish now, and copy this link right here. If you're adding these kinds of visualizations to Medium, by the way, you would use visualization only. If you're using it for general sharing or for homework, this for sharing option is perfectly fine. Okay, last but not least, we're going to create one more map, and this one is a locator map. For this one, I've shared a link with all of you to a GeoJSON file that has shapes of Florida parks in it. So you can actually open that file using the Google Drive link, and you'll see a screen kind of like this. It'll say no preview available, and then it'll say download. So you'll want to download that to your computer. It's called florida-nat-parks.geojson, and you can use that for this example. Okay, so we're actually going to be using a locator map of just Florida. So you can double click until you zoom into Florida to get this to kind of the place where you want it to be. We're going to try and get all of Florida into this map. Okay, and now because we're going to add our national parks, you're going to need to use this option that says import line and area markers. And then here where it says import GeoJSON or CSV, you will go ahead and select that file that I shared with all of you to import, and you'll see those shapes pop up here to represent the different parks. Okay, then if you want to change the styling of those parks, you'll scroll back up to where it says area marker 1. I'm going to go ahead and make these kind of like a greenish color, maybe a dark green. And I'm also going to go ahead and make them a little bit more opaque, less transparent. I'm also going to remove the outline. I don't really want an outline on these. Although if you wanted to, since some of them are close together, you could kind of do a greenish outline between them. You also have the option to put lines, by the way, this kind of like textured look. That's completely up to you, optional. I'm going to go ahead and keep it solid for now. You can also create dashed or dotted lines around each of your polygons. And decrease the opacity. Okay, so now that you have your area markers, I'm going to go ahead and add some individual place markers. And I'm going to add the individual place markers for the actual parks. So the first park that I'm going to search for is Biscayne Bay National Park. And that's, oh, it's coming up with a different national park. Let's just look for Biscayne Bay. So this is going to give me a lot of different options. We want to be as precise as possible. I'm going to look at a map that I've already completed that shows this kind of idea that we're going for. It looks like it's just Biscayne, and that's why, Biscayne National Park. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to look this up really quick. Biscayne National Park. Alrighty. Biscayne National Park looks like it's the right thing. It might just not be coming up for us here. There we go. We just had to type out Biscayne National Park as a full thing. Once we click on Biscayne National Park, it's going to put the full text of that address onto our map. Instead, I just want to leave Biscayne National Park on there. I also want to make the symbol a tree. Let's see, where's the little tree here? And I want to make it green to represent National Park. Not too bad. Maybe make it a little more saturated there. By the way, when you have a label like this, you can drag and drop it to anywhere that you want in order to make it more kind of visible on your map. And you can also just hit the Enter key to make that exist on two separate lines. You can also click on more options to format your text, right? You could kind of right align this text if you want to, and you can change the scale and the rotation. If you want to, you can do like an angle here. Personally, I don't think we need an angle for this one. All right. If you want a tooltip to show up when you hover over it, you would put that in this tooltip box right here. I think it would be interesting to have the number of national visitors, or just annual visitors maybe. And we can use a search to find out annual visitors, how many there are. Looks like there have been 709,000 visitors, but it doesn't say if that was in a year or how often. So maybe I'll try the second one here. Biscayne visitation. Oh yeah, that was by year. Okay, so let's go ahead and just say 708,000 with a little k to say 708K. Okay, not too bad. We could also repeat the name if we wanted to, Biscayne National Park, and have that show up for us. All right, so that's our first marker down. The next one we're going to want to include here is the Everglades National Park. All right. And same thing as before, we're going to want to simplify this. Make it a little tree, make it green. By the way, if you ever want to repeat the styles more than once, you can do so. You can click on Copy Style from Biscayne National Park, and then here on Everglades National Park, click on Paste Style. That's going to have the same color and the same tree automatically. We're going to want this centered below though. And then, same as before, we're going to add some text to our tooltip, Everglades National Park. And then we're going to search for Everglades National Park annual visitors. Let's see. Looks like Everglades gets about 1 million visitors a year. Let's just go ahead and round that to 1 million, just for the purposes of this example. 1 million. Okay, pretty good. Then let's see what other parks we have here. We've got Big Cypress, just referring to my own example here. Big Cypress, I think this is actually a national preserve. Let's see if that's correct. Yeah, national preserve. Again, we're going to want to delete the extra stuff, paste the style that we copied before. Going to have some extra space here, and then maybe put it on top since there's extra space. Makes it a little easier. Or we could put it off to the left, kind of like this. That looks okay. And then we're going to want to put the same thing in our information. National Preserve and annual visitors. Let's see. Big Cypress National Preserve annual visitors. Let's see. It says nearly 1 million visitors explore the preserve each year. So let's go ahead and give this one a value of 1 million as well. About the same as Everglades, a little less. All right, now let's go ahead and add Dry Tortugas. I think that's a monument, national monument, perhaps? Oh, it's national park. Okay, national park. Do the same thing, put this on 2 lines, paste the style here, center it again below. Maybe I'll move the icon so that we can actually see the island. That looks pretty good. Let's search for Dry Tortugas National Park annual visitors. We've got about 79,000 people. Annual visitors. 79,000. Include here Dry Tortugas National Park. Pretty good. Looks good, looks good. And then we have a few more here in North Florida, which we could label, or we could leave it like this and just say that we're focusing on South Florida for this map. So if we are focusing on South Florida, we can click on proceed. We can choose a style, by the way, if we want to change the style of our map. Any one of these styles that you want is fine with me. You can also choose to show roads or not show roads. That's totally up to you. Maybe we'll do kind of like an earthy one over here. Or we could do a minimalist gray. That's fine. It's totally up to you. Okay, you can also include a north arrow and a scale bar. Those are nice to have. And if anyone is not familiar with where Florida is in the world, you could include this inset map. And then you could put it maybe at the top left or top right. Maybe top right. And you could maybe decrease this offset. Yeah, that's pretty good. And make it smaller, maybe. Okay, you could also have it be a particular region, right? If you wanted it to show just the United States in that inset map, right? So that's totally up to you how you want to do that. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and say, I need a title here. So we can click on proceed to go to annotation. And I like titles to sound like headlines. I think it's much better for the reader. So we're going to say most of Florida's, or many of Florida's, national parks and preserves are in South Florida. Or we could even say, to avoid repetition, many of the state's national parks and preserves are in South Florida, right? And then we could include a subtitle like popular parks include the Everglades National Park and the Big Cypress National Preserve. Data source, we would want to include maybe this nationalpark.com where we got a lot of our stats, right? Oh, it says invalid URL because I didn't copy the H here. National Park stats, and then don't forget your byline and an alternative description. Map of Florida's national parks and preserves. All right, you don't need a key for this one. You can click on proceed. In the layout, don't forget to click this option for embed link so that anyone can embed your map. This allows me to help you embed your map different places and so on and so forth, right? And then finally click on proceed and publish your map. Let's wait for it to come up here. Publish now. Turn in the link right here. All right, the preview isn't working right now. I can refresh. Okay, now the preview is working, sort of. All right, and that's how to create 3 different maps: a locator map, a Choropleth map, and a symbol map in Datawrapper.